Hey everybody, welcome back. So a lot of times lately I have been finding myself more and more often working on little bitty tiny things, whether it be the SMD, surface mount device components on a printer board, or whether trying to adjust the timing on a mechanical watch. It always seems lately like I'm trying to do something and I can't see it very well. So, I've tried the eye loops and I've tried the magnified headbands. And the problem has been that by the time I get the magnification high enough, my face is so darn close to it that I can't get my giant hands and fingers in to work on it. So I've been looking for an alternate solution. And it popped into my brain, why not try something a little bit more high tech? Why not try using a phone as a magnifier? Just so happens I have my old, it's not old, it's not even probably barely 2 years old, my blue phone that I bought that still works really good, and it was a good phone. I replaced it with a Samsung. I got a killer deal on it, and but the blue phone works great, so I thought, why not use a phone to do this as a magnifier? It's got a built-in light. It'll record video, it'll do all kinds of cool stuff. So why don't I try that? So I hopped over to Thingiverse and I found this thing, and let me show that to you now. Okay, so here's the thing I found over at Thingiverse. It's called an SMD soldering assistant, and the author of it was Michael Ovis. And he posted this on August 12th of 2009, and believe it or not, it has no makes. Nobody has made this yet. 0 comments and 0 makes. So as I looked at it and I looked at him showing how he used it, I got more and more interested in it. So as you could see from the previous chunk of video, I have already printed all the parts out. He had made some interesting things about it. He used 6mm rod for these uprights and 1/4 threaded rod. Well, that seemed kind of silly to me. I mean, if you're a shopper, a hobbyist that works in inches, you've probably got 1/4 but not 6mm rod. And if you're doing metric, you've probably got the 6mm rod and not 1/4 threaded rod. So what I did, and here, let me get out of here. And I think we've seen enough of this. I'm really hoping this works well for me. But let's go back to the other video. Okay, so back to this. I have all the parts printed, and what I did was, since I have lots and lots of 1/4 rod, but no 6mm rod, but I've got lots of 1/4 rod, I just went ahead and drilled everything out that where the 6mm rod was going to go to the 1/4. Now I could have bought 6mm rod off Amazon for $8 or $9, but I've got the 1/4 rod, so let's just use it. He has a couple of 1/4 nuts in there as well, but let's take a look at his design. It's really pretty interesting. He has the whole thing screwed down to a base. This is the base. This knurled wheel goes there, and I've done some sanding to make things fit smooth. This cap goes over the top, and I've done a little bit of sanding and filing on that so it goes together. And you got to watch out, if you press this together and then want to take it back apart, you'll probably break it. And then, as you can see, I already broke one of the tabs off of this one and had to print a second one. So once you shove that together, don't expect to get it back apart without breaking it unless you put it in loose. Then the uprights and the threaded rod go in, and he's got some nuts on here to hold it all together. And then this is the top piece. And you see he's got these, I don't know if you can see it, he's got these little slots here with matching slots on the cover. But then he's got these little small, and he doesn't tell you what to do with these in his description, but I think I know here, and holes underneath it they line up with. And then this part fits in here like that, and it's got teeth on the bottom here to match the teeth over here. And then the top cover goes in, and this little spring pushes it back out. And there's this part, upright part of this goes in between here to give that spring tension. And it's supposed to do this and lock in place. and it doesn't lock perfectly. It locks perfectly coming out like that, but you can push it in tight to get on your phone and then press that to release it. And you don't want, the reason I think he made these is to like put small screws or small pins in it and glue them in there, and there, so that when you pull that out, that top cover doesn't come with it. It stays back where it belongs. So I thought it might be fun to put all this together in a video, and we'll see how it works. So I'm going to grab some parts and I'm going to come back and start putting this together. And oh, by the way, somebody told me to try using beeswax as a lubricant for PLA, so it's very cheap. After all, I mean, it's kind of a byproduct. So it's a good lubricant for different things. I have never used any of it in its pure form, so I got some and I'm going to try that. So I will be right back and we'll put this together. So I've been making a little bit of progress on this. Let me first say that anytime I make something like this, it's a proof of concept, meaning that I'm not expecting it to work. It'd be great if it does. I'm just expecting to be able to prove, is this concept valid? Will this work? If I go out of my way to build a really, really nice one, will I not regret it when I'm done? So keep that in mind. So it's kind of interesting how he has this. Note, and I mounted the base plate to this board. And if you're wondering why I mounted it the way I did, you'd see I have holes over here. I originally had this turned and mounted here. And then when I kind of mocked the whole thing up, I realized that with the camera and the phone being over here, my work surface was going to be off the edge of the board. So I decided to rotate it, put it over here, and that'll make my work surface right in here someplace. Anyway, that's the plan for this first one. And this is only a piece of 3/8 thick or 1/2 inch thick particle board, probably 1/2 inch thick. It's a base board. So I've got 6 screws in it because you really can't tighten them very much. So, and again, I may make a really nice one if this turns out to be super good. So I've got my pieces of rod cut. I've got my threaded rod cut. And one thing to note is, a couple things to note. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but he said don't use support on anything other than the top cover, which is this piece under here, this piece here. But if you look at some of these other pieces, notably this one in here and this one, and I've cleaned it out a bit, he really did need support in for these overhangs. I didn't have to, but I kind of wish I had have done it. If I ever do make a second one, I will go back and do that. Now, another thing to note is when this is in there and the rods are in and this is in, and they did thread the center of that hole. When that's in, when you turn this screw, can you see it? When you turn the thumb wheel, the rod must turn. If the rod doesn't turn, the top and bottom, the top part doesn't, with the phone, does not go up and down. So, in his photo on Thingiverse, he shows a nut under there. So since he threaded that, I have a feeling what he's doing is he's double nutting it using the plastic threads and the 1/4 20 nut, which he says you need, and you really need 3/4 20 nuts for this. I'll tell you that right now. So what I'm going to do, instead of using one nut and double nutting it with this, because my luck with plastic threads isn't very good, and yes, this is a proof of concept. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but as long as it proves the concept, I don't care. But I want, if it does work, I'd like to be able to use it. So it's kind of a conundrum, isn't it? How good do you make a proof of concept? So I don't want the end of the threaded shaft dragging on the wood. So I want to thread it down until it hits the wood, and then I'm going to back it off about 1/4 or 1/2 a turn or so, maybe even more. I'm going to put my nut there. I'm going to put a nut on it here. And I may not thread any much more down through than the nut needs, and I'm going to put a nut on the other side of it, just so I know that I can abuse this thing a wee bit without those plastic threads giving up and then the whole thing not working anymore. So let's do that. I'm going to go ahead and tighten that down. Now this top piece also, it has to move up and down. It has to go up and down. Keep having to tip things. It has to go up and down on those two threaded rods being turned by that thumb wheel. Now, you don't want the unthreaded rod to lift up out of the bottom hole, so either this upper hole is going to have to be a lot bigger, or we're going to have to somehow pin that unthreaded rod into the base. So let me get these nuts tightened down. Oh, and this has to be threaded somewhere as well. Now he said he used a concrete anchor and just a 1/4-20 concrete, you know, threaded anchor and put it in until it bottomed and then ground it off. I've got a nut. I've got one of these things, which really doesn't fit very well. And I've got one of these from the previous project I did where I made the bendable camera arm. That is absolutely a possibility as it pushes in. I may use that, and you know what? I may just sink a nut in there, but we'll see. We'll do that when we do that. And again, I mentioned before how this has to go. Now, you know what, we'll do that when we do that. Let me get some of this stuff put together and I'll be back. So I super glued my rods in, and what I did is I just put super glue on the bottom of them, stuck them in, then I took the top plate and set the top plate on, and left it there until the super glue dried, just to make sure that they were going in it somewhat close to the right angle so I wouldn't glue them in really crooked. I double nutted the bottom of this, and I've also made sure that that sits close enough to where everything will go together. I'm ready now to put this in and put this cover on, but before I do that, I want to get that nut sunk into this, and I want to use this to do it, and this is the nut in question. So what I want to do is heat that nut up and just use the heat to sink it in there and kind of get it straight. Now, if you have a heat gun, and I do, you can use the heat gun to heat the nut up, but you know what? A little flame never hurt a project, right? So I'm going to heat that nut up, and you don't got to get it super hot. I always seem to get it way hotter than what it really needs. But you know what? That's life, isn't it? You just want to get it hot enough that it will melt plastic easily. Not so hot that it will wreck anything it touches. And we're just going to stick it on there, and we're just going to sink it down in until it bottoms. And kind of make sure that our rod is coming out at a copacetic angle. And try and keep it straight both ways, which isn't easy to do. And once it cools, you can unthread it, and there we have a nut set down in the bottom. And that thing is as crooked as the day is long, isn't it? Let's see if I can. Oh, it's not very solid, is it? I'm gonna have to super glue that, but that's okay. Let's get the super glue back. Kind of eyeball it for straightness. That looks pretty good now. So let's just get the super glue, and let's just put some drops of super glue. Yeah, that is really loose in there. Oh well, we'll straighten it up once we get it nice and wet. Alright, let's just thread this in long enough to just kind of make sure that nut is squared away. That's good right there. And we'll kind of set that to one side and let it set up. Okay, so now let's put this in, and now I'm going to take my top plate, my bottom top plate, and I'm going to super glue just the backs of these pins because I don't want to accidentally super glue the nut to it. And let's put it in place. I have test fitted a number of times, so I'm sure we're pretty good. So I am going to just put a dab of super glue there, one there, and I may do a little on the very bottom, even though I don't think the bottom is probably going to touch. I hate super glue. I've always hated super glue, but it does do what it's supposed to do. You can't deny that. So Now we're going to slide that down. And now that I've got it glued, it won't go. There it goes. And we're going to press it down tight. Like that. And there we go. So there's our bottom assembled. It turns. The rod turns with the nut. And I think that'll do for that part. Now we got to do the top part. Okay. Oop, I whacked that camera, didn't I? Okay, our nut is pretty solid in the hole now. So now what we got to do is we have to assemble this. And these three pieces here. And as I mentioned before, I don't know if you can see him, he put these three small holes in the bottom and these three small slots in there, as well as holes in the sides here, and then slots in the matching side over here. So what I think he has in mind of doing is when you put this together, and I want to put a little beeswax on it just to make sure it slides fairly well. I did put a little on the bottom, although I didn't do it on camera, sorry. So you see how that all lines up? I think what I'm going to do is just take a paper clip and wet it with super glue or jam it in there and cut it flush. Can you see how that is? Put that in there, cut it flush, have a sacrificial pair of snips, because the little snips we use for 3D printing, cutting paper clip will probably damage them. And then put some super glue on it. And again, the same with the holes in the bottom. And you can kind of feel that line up. Super glue it and then cut it off flush, and hopefully that'll pin that whole thing together. And other than that, other than getting that in place and putting some lubricant on it so it goes up and down, I think that'll finish it. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so what I did here, I put some super glue. I held these pieces together with the centerpiece in it, but yet retracted all the way out. But I wanted to make sure this was in there so that it fit. And I put some super glue down this crack in here, and then I put a couple drops over here, and then I removed, and once that hardened and everything was held, fairly closely, I went ahead and removed this so I don't accidentally super glue it in place. And now what I'm going to do is, you can see I've got one of the paper clips in. I guess I could use 6 paper clips and do it all at once, but why be wasteful, even though I've probably got 5,000 paper clips. Anyway, I'm going to do them one at a time down here and one at a time down here, and when I have that done, I'll be back. Okay, so as you can see, I got my pins in the side and super glued in. I took a diamond file and I filed that down so that it won't scratch a phone that's in it. And I got my bottom pins in. You got to watch out with the bottom pins. I don't know if you can see the one in there, but you got to make sure when you put them in, they're not tipped and coming out in the travel path of this part. But anyway, it's all in, it's all done, it's all smoothed down. All I have to do is put this in, and I have rubbed it well with my beeswax. Let's hope that gives me a little bit of extra slide. There we go. And kind of a tight fit. There we go. Yeah, that'll work. And now we're at the moment of truth. Now I just got to put it together. So I'm going to put the be going? Am I turning it the right way? I am. Should be going. Okay, I'm going to pause here momentarily till I get that started and down. No point making you sit through this. I'll be right back. Okay, it's all together, and I'm having the problem that I was afraid that I was going to have, and that is it threaded in that far, and now when I turn the thumb wheel, the rod doesn't turn anymore. And that is a problem. I'm going to have to get this back apart. At the very least, this top cover is going to have to come off, and I'm going to have to figure out why my double nutting it didn't prevent that from turning. Okay, I lucked out, and the only thing I really damaged was the plate, that one cover plate that goes over there The base plate seems to be okay. I printed another cover plate. I also opened up the holes that slide over this, because before, if it got slightly cocked, it would bind up. I also waxed that up really well, which now even when it gets cocked, it doesn't bind. I also glued the snot out of everything on this. I glued the plastic thumb wheel into the threaded rod. I put the nuts on, I glued the nuts on both sides, I glued everything. So hopefully that won't come off again. I also ran a tap through all this to make sure I was having no binding in there. And again, using the beeswax, I waxed the threads up real good. So let's try one more time. Let's put it together. I turned acceptably well in there. This time I don't think I'm going to glue this down. I think I'm just going to put it down, and once again I filed it so it would fit fairly nice and tight, but not too tight. And I think what I will do is I will get my little dead blow hammer, and I will just give that a tappy tap tap all around there, just to make sure we're down. That really is pretty tight. I can barely turn my wheel, which doesn't make me particularly happy. Not sure when and where that changed. Yeah, I'm not very happy about that. Let me work on that and I'll be right back. Okay, after numerous more trials and tribulations, I believe I have now got this so it can work. I think I have now printed 4 or 5 of these. If you have to force it on and take it back off, it doesn't matter whether you glue it or not, you will break the pin. So I think if I had to do this over again, I would probably print this base 2 to 3% larger in all dimensions, and I think that would make it getting it together a little easier. And I have a feeling if the original author had have gotten more makes and more suggestions, he might have improved upon it. But since that never happened, he probably got the one he made for himself together, and then just that is as far as the project went. So also, if I had to do this again, I would put it on a larger board, and if this one works, I may do that anyway. So let's put it together. This time I have glued the snot out of everything. I have this part trimmed now so it will fit without being too tight, and I have marked it because it only fits, well, it fits best one way, let's put it that way. I can now push that down so it's flush, and at some point what I'm going to want to do is I am going to glue that down, but I can now put it down nice and tight, and I can still turn my screw. Let's see if we can get this on now, because that was where I fell down last time. I couldn't get this on. Okay, come on. There we go. I'm feeling good about this. If that goes down to the point where it'll hold the phone, I'm going to pop that cover back off and glue it real quick. Yeah, there we go. We're now getting this down. Now getting this down to the point where we can see the rods above the top. It appears nice and sturdy. That slides. It's pretty tight when it's pushed all the way back, but it does slide in and out acceptably. Okay, I am gonna pop this cover back up, and I am gonna put some glue on it, and I think I'm gonna take this back off and do it, and I'll be right back. Okay, I have that glued down there. It's not perfect, but it is solid, so let's put it back together and let's see if we can actually see if this is an idea that's gonna work. I didn't realize it was going to take this much effort to get this thing put together, but you know what, that's okay. I'm just going to thread it down until the rods are all the way through, because I'm hoping that the adjustable height will leave me room to get my hands under it. Okay, there it is there. Let's get the phone. I said we were going to start with the blue phone, and I have played with the phones a little bit, and I got to tell you why while the blue phone had, Well, the Blue Phone had an okay camera for just taking outdoor pictures. For these close-ups, it's apparent that the, and I'm going to turn this way so the light is in the best place. It is apparent that the Samsung camera is far superior for the close-ups. Let's get something tiny under there. What do I have here? Where did that watch that doesn't run go? Here it is right there. Let's get that there. And I am using this app called, I think it's just called Magnifier. There are a bunch of magnifier apps in the Play Store. I picked this one because it seemed like it worked the best and had the least amount of ads. So let's take a look and let's see what it looks like. Let's move that watch. Oh, let's move that watch to there. That's a lot of magnification. Wow. Where's my little bitty tiny screwdriver here? This is a itsy bitsy little Weeha screwdriver, 1.5 by 40. And you can see the size of it in there compared to that little screw. That's pretty good. That's its, I think that's its maximum magnification. There are other apps that offer more, but boy, that is a lot. There's my giant finger in there. That's pretty nice, and that leaves enough room to get the screwdriver in and even have it be upright under it. Okay, that's pretty good. Let's try threading it down closer. I don't really think it needs to be closer. I don't know what good closer is going to do for me. I suppose it might make it bigger. Let's try it. Let's thread it down a little closer. Not exactly what you'd call a fast process to adjust it. I have about an inch of the rods protruding above the above now. Let's keep going. Let's keep going until we have about, oh, I don't know, that's good. Wow, that is really close up. Let's take a look at the difference between that and the Samsung camera. Let's get that off of there. Let's put the Samsung in, and let's do the same thing. Got a much slimmer case on it, and I will need to get some foam or rubber or something in there. That's the camera. Let's get out of the camera and go to the magnifier. There's the magnifier. Yeah, look at the difference between the two cameras. I mean, that's huge. That's a huge difference. You wouldn't know it if you just went out and took a picture of your car and shared it with somebody, but that is a huge difference. You can see the little jewels perfectly if you wanted to lube them. And once again, I have too much blood in my caffeine system. So yeah, I'm pretty impressed with that. That's not even zoomed all the way in. Holy cow. So yeah, that may really be too close. It's nice to have it higher, and that way you have more room to work on something. Let's get it back up near the top. That way Alright, now I only have about, I don't know, 10 millimeters or so of rod showing through. Whoops. That's pretty good. I don't know. I think I'm going to work with this for a while just the way it is. I may extend that board out so I have more room out here. But honestly, that seems pretty good just the way it is. This watch was a very, very cheap automatic watch, and by very cheap I mean I'm talking $25 cheap. So it is very roughly manufactured, which is probably why it doesn't run. Ran for a couple of weeks and then quit. But let's try something else. Here's a flash card. So that is pretty darn good. Anyway, I think I'm going to like that. I think I'm going to work with it, and hopefully this is something that can help you, and hopefully if you do, my little video here with my errors and miscalculations and suggestions will help you make it better than I did and have less trouble than I did. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, hit notifications, and I'll catch you the next time. Bye for now.